The Chosen Season 5 behind the scenes are still coming out from The Chosen, as they're a few weeks behind, current time right now. So they're going through all the stuff at the end of The Chosen Season 5 all the way through Texas. So we've got several weeks ahead of us for the behind the scenes of that. Now, don't miss today's episode because there are some script leaks that we're going to go over in a bit and talk about a new character actually that was introduced through these script leaks, which is quite interesting. And so we're going to jump into this section right here, talk about the BTS, and let's jump in.
Thunder, lightning, rain, floods
are all things that we don't need to worry about too much this week because they're going to be filming indoors, starting with the Sanhedrin right behind us.
So this is going to be a fun week because this week is going to begin with us returning to
the Great Sanhedrin.
So I believe this week or another week near this is when Nicodemus, I think, has been shooting scenes for The Chosen Season 5. We've talked about this pretty much in length in terms of all the different kind of evidences that we have of where Nicodemus is coming from or what is going to be happening for Season 5. And I think he's going to be in Season 5. We definitely see his wife, who actually, the actress who plays Zahara, actually posted on social media that she was in Texas, and then we actually have a picture of her in her costume as well, which is really, really interesting. And that was taken down offline after it was posted because they didn't want it to get out there. And so we actually have that information. Obviously, we caught it because we're the Chosen Super Sleuths. And of course, we've talked about that over and over again. So we think that Nicodemus is going to be in these scenes here, most likely, as they've had so many other scenes of the Sanhedrin where Nicodemus was not a part of it. So it would make a lot of sense that he would finally come back in Season 5, and he would have a moment of actually defending Jesus in the Sanhedrin, which we see in Scripture. So we should be seeing that here.
Which is funny, because if you look outside, it's the Capernaum synagogue, until you walk inside, and it's the Sanhedrin.
Blessed be our God, blessed be our Lord.
So if you look in that room right now in that Sanhedrin, one half of the room is not on camera and only the other half is. So the key actors on the half that's not on camera, they go stand in certain places. They're given tremendous performances to feed the performances of those who are on camera. I mean, Caiaphas, who's not even on camera, is like giving that prayer, and it's so powerful. It's awesome to see it going back and forth like that.
I have documented Jesus' actions, teachings, and rumors of signs longer than anyone.
For those who have seen Season 4, they know that Jesus did things that Shmuel could not find it in his upbringing to support.
Yeah, Shmuel's totally out of it now, right? Like he is not interested in Jesus, at least following him in any way, right? He's totally against Jesus, has marked him as a false prophet now.
And for him, it was the confirmation that Jesus must be a false prophet. And so I think what has always remained the same is that he has the best of intentions, which is simply to protect his people. It's just that he has misinterpreted Jesus and the situation. So sadly, he's on the wrong side of God and history. Now it's about protecting the people at all costs.
Jesus has forced us into a situation where to protect our people, we must consider drastic measures.
Well, you had come to me and said, I love
Tyler Thompson, who was one of the writers for the show, one of my favorite people.
Shmuel. We always wanted the heroes of Sanhedrin, like say Yusuf, to have worthy opponents.
I love the fact that Shmuel in this story can have a good heart and just be wrong.
He loves his people. We can actually show these people who sometimes get blamed for the death of Jesus as people who were just doing what they thought was best.
Objection. I have witnessed as much as Shmuel.
It is a different vibe now. I don't think they'll ever go back to what they were in Season 1.
They're both motivated by passion and love, and like you said, that actually is the scariest kind of argument to be in.
Jesus is the one accused of these violations.
But Jesus is guilty of these infractions, and the only reason you're not holding him accountable is because you're in trance.
It's about...
Super interesting. So Shmuel is basically blaming Yusuf that he's in a trance, that he's been duped by Jesus, and then Yusuf is trying to defend Jesus and saying like, no, you're wrong about this, blah, 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 right? So they're definitely fighting now, whereas in Season 4, we saw them coming closer together than we've seen them previously. So this is the first time really that we're seeing Yusuf totally against Shmuel and Shmuel totally against Yusuf, which is quite interesting to see this breaking of a friendship here.
A misunderstanding, but of the deadliest kind.
now back here at the sound stages, and inside, they're filming in one of the biggest sets they've ever built. Let's take a look.
Soundstage.
Really cool stuff there. So if we look there, we see some art on the walls as well. This must be some sort of concept art for either previous season or maybe even future seasons. Kind of cool stuff there. But this is the soundstage. So yeah, kind of hard to see there.
Soundstage filming has begun. And look at these sets. These sets are incredible. This one in particular is huge.
So we saw these in the behind the scenes early on. This is the new place that the group seems to be staying during their time in Jerusalem. So it's someone's house. It's a Roman person's house. We don't know whose this is, but we definitely see a lot of Roman architecture, a lot of Roman ideology. A lot of Roman iconography in terms of Roman gods and goddesses and things like that. And so this is not a Jewish person's house in Jerusalem. They are probably connected to this through Joanna, would be my guess, because we've seen Joanna in this house as well. I don't know if it's her house or if it's someone else's, but yeah, we're seeing that here, which is really, really interesting. We'll see more of that as we go on.
It's all indoors, inside the massive soundstage.
Whoa! I thought Lazarus' house was an upgrade.
When I went on my honeymoon to Nice, France, we went to some like Grecian villas, and I walked in and was like, this is exactly like what I saw, except better in a way because it's newly painted and made. But honestly, it looks the exact same with the sort of open air. And then you'd go off in the rooms, the statue and the fountains. I was totally blown away.
The attention to detail is just crazy.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. I've actually been to that set in person. It's massive. Very, very cool. There's a bunch of different sections they could shoot in and do different stuff there as well, which is really amazing.
We move indoors and suddenly everyone's in a better mood.
A juggling mood. Can you juggle more than those guys behind you?
Definitely, yeah.
How many things can you juggle?
9.
How many ladies have you impressed with your juggling abilities?
I stopped counting.
It's all about...
This is the kind of stuff I always like. I just want to question mark, like, what is happening here?
Practice, dude. It is about practice, yes. So why don't you shut up?
There's always so much that happens on set, and you didn't see everything. So make sure to head over to The Chosen.
All right, so that's the end of this episode. Let's head over to the bonus video, which is really interesting this week for sure. Not only is it going over one of my favorite people from the Chosen cast, or Chosen crew, I mean, but it actually houses some really unique little things, including a script leak, which I'm sure they saw and just didn't really care about. However, it does confirm things for us in terms of what we're going to see coming up very soon. So let's jump into this. Here we go. Yo, what's up? If you're enjoying this video right here and you want to see more content just like this, the best way to support us is going to snipesupport.com. This is our Patreon where you can pledge $5, $10, or $25 a month to help us continue to make videos like this. This is my full-time job, so Patreon is by far the best, most sustainable place where people help us to continue making videos. So anyway, if you like it, leave a like, subscribe, but if you really want to help us to continue making videos, Patreon is the best possible way. Anyway, snipesupport.com, it's in the description down below. Let's get back to the video.
There's a part of filmmaking that you don't ever see, but you hear.
Yes, Mark LeBlanc, not Matt LeBlanc. He is the Chosen's production sound mixer.
So this is Mark right here. Now you can see on Mark's screen, there is the scene that he's watching. Then below he has all of his different instruments for his audio gear. And then next to that is a script. Now I've talked to Mark several different times being on set with The Chosen. He's a super, super nice guy. He's always been very kind to me, allowing me to like kind of come in and watch his screen and see what's kind of going on and different things like that on set. So he's always been super, super nice. Great guy. And here we can see part of that script. I know it's going to be really hard for you to read right here, but we're going to break it down later. So don't worry. I have enhanced it and we're going to walk through every single shot of this video that shows this screen here with the script in it.
His job is very involved and it requires a lot of talent.
So let's meet Mark and his sound team.
You hear your boom right now. Zebedee, John's lab.
So he's got a boom, he's got Zebedee, he's got John. There's a third character right here next to John who he doesn't mention. However, we're going to reveal who this character is in just a second here.
Each one of the actors is assigned a number, and the number is corresponding to...
Again, you can probably pause and read some of this script, but we're going to go through all of it in just a second, so no need to do that.
Faders.
That's good. Very nice.
There's that new character again. Just keep him in mind when we're going to talk about it later.
Just reset background. Reset.
My responsibilities are primarily to record the dialogue from each of the actors. Secondary is if there's some cool sounds. And I'm also responsible for multiple crew members. So I have 2 boom operators, which are responsible to put the larger microphones over the actors.
You're holding that up for very long periods of time. Do your arms ever hurt?
Not really. The big thing is that you're not holding with your arms. If you're holding it out like this with your arms, you'll get tired in a minute.
Looks like it's made from carbon fiber as well, which of course is strong but light. So that's a great thing there. You can see at the back of the pole is basically a transmitter that transmits that sound from the mic to the operator, which is Mark. And so he can have all that sound right in front of him and make sure that everything is good to go. Very cool wireless systems that we have nowadays, when previously this probably would have been done all with wired systems, kind of wires going everywhere all over a set, that kind of thing.
A lot of it is holding it close to your body and using your body essentially to hold it. You find that sweet spot where...
So right here, I want you to note that John is talking to this other character kind of by himself here.
Essentially, you're just balancing it.
I got this. I can do this.
What is your official title for the show?
Moments like this, I wish I could keep a straight face.
This is Joe Santoyo. I can kind of move my picture here so you guys can see. He's a boom operator. We see a lot of him in the behind the scenes. He seems to be a very funny guy. Yeah, cool guy.
Didn't come up with something funny on the spot, but
You're just
Broken Joe.
Just between me and you. Straight. I don't even think he likes spraining his ankle.
I love these guys too. The guy on the left is the photographer for the show. And then the guy on the right, I don't know what his official role is, but we've met several times and he's a really, really cool guy as well. Always is very kind to me whenever I'm on set. So yeah, really, really cool guys here.
You know what I'm saying? Really?
Are you going to enjoy sitting down for a change?
Yeah, I'm heading to you.
And then I have a utility. They are responsible for putting those transmitters and lavaliers on each of the actors.
So here you can see that during the shots of The Chosen, normally the actors will have lavaliers on them. So they don't just rely on the boom mic, but they also have lavaliers that they're putting under the costumes of these different characters in order to get better sound if they need to. And then even if they need more sound after they've already shot the show, like for example, right now in season 5, they're probably doing different things where they're adding in audio after the fact for specific parts of it that maybe they got bad audio for, or they need to redo it because of a plane or different things like that. And so, yeah, cool stuff though, to see the behind the scenes of where they keep all these mics and to know that they're wearing mics at all times during the show as well. It's just really, really interesting. These are very expensive pieces of equipment though.
I got you.
Okay.
Oh boy.
You can.
Let's go down. We'll go down this layer. Our lovely costumes department has ordered what I call manties. So they're little shorts that have pockets in them for our transmitters, so the actors no longer have to wear thigh straps and stuff all day long.
Now my voice is emphasized. And we always do a handshake at the end.
Oh.
It goes like this, remember?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
You totally got it.
And then both. And then you just like push me away.
Allah is really funny. He's always this way for sure.
I push you away.
And I come back and be like, what? And then I just turn around and we ended on this.
Oh, good. All right. Crushed it. We've totally done that before.
Yes.
This right here is $2,200.
Yeah, so $2,200 for one lav mic. Of course, this is not the most expensive gear on the show whatsoever. That lav mic is probably one of the least expensive pieces of gear on the show. The lights that they're using are tens of thousands of dollars. And then the cameras themselves are a minimum of like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. That's not including the lenses that they use, which are each several $1,000s each. There's a lot of very expensive things. This is why it's $5 million per episode that they shoot. It's very, very expensive.
He has 14 of them.
What? Why is this so much money?
It's got one of the most transparent sounds, and tucked behind this piece of tape is a little CF card that records.
So a CF card is like an SD card, essentially a high-end SD card. Sorry, let me grab one here. So if you've ever seen like an SD card in a camera, for example, like this, it's a high-end version of this, so it's a little bit bigger, has faster read and write speeds, things like that. That's what a CF card is. It's just a way of storing data, essentially. So that basically what he's saying is that when these actors have this mic, they don't have to rely on the wireless signal that they're getting, but they can actually record on the device itself. This isn't a particularly new invention for these specific devices, but these devices are probably way more reliable than some of the cheaper options that you could get for maybe a couple $100 rather than a couple $1,000.
So if a director might go, oh, we're just going to put an actor in a car and let him go drive around. So we just put this into record, drop it in the car, and then pick up the card later.
Why even have the boom mic if everybody is lobbed up?
The camera doesn't give us the opportunity to put a boom in every shot. And a shot like this where the camera's far back, you still want to be able to hear the actor speaking. So the editors will still have those particular dialogues from an actor. This particular scene, it's a wider shot, so I'm going to...
Again, we'll look at this script in a second. Basically what he's saying is the lav mics are really, really good to have if you can't have a boom mic, but a boom mic is going to give you different sound most of the time, and it's going to give you more of the room sound, so it's going to give you a better feel for a TV show, where a lav mic is going to be good for dialogue in particular of a specific character. So they're just used for different reasons, but it's great to have both. And then they also add other audio on top of that in post-production later on. So again, we'll go through the description just a second.
I'll let the boom play, and then I'll feather in each of the actors' lavaliers as the scene progresses.
And since he could not pay, the master ordered...
So you see there the photographer, and as well some behind-the-scenes shooting going on right there.
His children sold.
One of the most unexpectedly funny scenes of the show.
Have patience with me and I will pay you everything.
So here, we talked about this previously. Peter is teaching here, but he's not doing a very good job. We've talked about this several times in the behind the scenes so far.
We have something on the show I've never had. We have Mark, who tracks airplanes and will let us know when a plane is coming overhead, and we will cut.
Such a smart thing to do there, for sure. As many planes go over, all over the United States, it's got to be so annoying to have to wait for 5 minutes for the plane to go over you and then start shooting again. So to know and plan when they're going to come is really, really smart.
Nice.
That's the
What are you going to be doing now?
You're
going to take some wires off some actors.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Watch the flames there, guy.
Like a tiger.
Ready for his close-up.
I've been doing sound for films for 17 years. And I've done a lot of fun projects. Not a single show has had the personal impact that this show has. It's not often you get to record amazing dialogue that's intercut with God's word. This is lightning in a bottle.
Yes.
And I'm beyond blessed to be.
Very cool stuff. I love his jacket too, his season 5 jacket that he's got on. Very cool stuff.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, very cool. Well, let's go over the scripts. So here, I put them in order for where they happen in the show. And so we're going to see a couple of different things. So first things first, this character that we saw earlier, we know his name now and we know his place in the show. This character that we're seeing with John right here, his name is Malchus. So we see that right here. Malchus and Zebedee and John are in this scene, as well as Zebediah. Now it's super interesting because there's some really cool lines of dialogue that are happening in this section here. First off, let's read the top section of this. Let me zoom out just a smidge so you can see all of it. So we see at the very top, it's cut off a little bit, but it says Zebedee is speaking here. Or I think Zebedee is speaking here. He says, to be perfectly honest, a woman helped perfect the recipe. To be perfectly honest, a woman helped to perfect the recipe. Had been. I think there's something just missing here, but I can't figure out what the sentence is exactly. Anyway, helped perfect the recipe, had been an esteemed vintner from the plains of Sharon. Tragically, she has gone to be with God. So obviously he's talking about Rhema there and how she helped to perfect the recipe for the olive oil in particular, which is quite interesting. To give her a lot of credit there, where she really wasn't there for the majority of the time when they were actually coming up with the recipe. So it's interesting that they would give her that credit there. I think they were just trying to probably mention Rhema, because she doesn't come back until season 4, episode 1, whenever Zebedee has already perfected his recipe and has already given it to the temple, or to the synagogue in Capernaum, right? So it's interesting there. So what does this tell us, right? From the very from the very start of what we're going through here in the scripts, they're obviously talking about olive oil, right? Zebedee selling his olive oil, or giving his olive oil to the temple here, which is a pretty big deal. And so we're going to see more about that as we go through here. Now, Malchus, just to give you a little bit background on who Malchus is, he is not a throwaway character. He is a scriptural character who we are going to see come back in season 5 and season 6. Okay, so season 5, obviously he's introduced here, but he is definitely going to come back in season 6. Why is that? Because of John chapter 18. Okay, so here we go. So we get the betrayal and arrest of Jesus here. We see that when Jesus had spoken these words, he went out to the disciples across the brook Kidron, or the Kidron Valley, where there was a garden which he and his disciples entered. This is the Garden of Gethsemane. Okay, now Judas came and betrayed him, blah, 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 blah. Okay, all this stuff happens. Peter then attacks one of the people who come with Judas. Okay, Simon Peter, having a sword, and drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. This servant's name was Malchus. Okay, so the high priest's servant whose ear is cut off is this guy right here. This is the guy who we're going to see not only in season 5, but also in season 6, and the ear on the other side of his head here is the one that will be cut off. Okay, so this is a really important character later on. This is the one who Peter will attack, and he is the connection point that John has to the high priest. This is important also in chapter 18, because the reason that John is able to be with Jesus during the trial and his crucifixion, all that kind of stuff, is because of his connection to Caiaphas. So it says right here in verse 15 here, Simon Peter followed Jesus after he was arrested, okay? And so did another disciple. That other disciple, because this is the book of John, John doesn't normally name himself. And so that other disciple is John, is what most of the scholars will say. Since the disciple had known the high priest, was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest, but Peter stood outside the door because he didn't have that same connection, okay? So that is what the Chosen is doing here, is they are making that connection between Malchus and John so that John will be connected to Caiaphas. And we're going to see more of that in the script here. So let's keep on going. So we see that, to be perfectly honest, sorry, let me zoom out on this. To be perfectly honest, a woman helped to perfect the recipe. She had been an esteemed vintner from the plains of Sharon. Tragically, she has gone to be with God. Then all of them say together, may her memory be a blessing. Then Malchus says, your business is a welcome change in our contract with a Gethsemane vendor. So this is going to connect Zebedee with Gethsemane. Okay, and this means that Zebedee's oil is going to be now connected with Gethsemane, which means that the people who work with Zebedee are going to have access to the Garden of Gethsemane. This is the reason why we see Jesus hide there during the end of his ministry, during the end of his life on earth, essentially. That's why they go here. It's not a random location. It's a connection point to Zebedee's oil ministry, okay? Now we see these lines in between. These are stage direction lines. Some of them are cut off, but we see most of the dialogue here. So Malchus turns back to them and he says, but don't mention that to any of the 7 Sanhedrin. He says, your business is a welcome change in our contract with a Gethsemane vendor, was tangled with bureaucracy and the old family ties. Jairus' recommendation gave us a way out. So he obviously Jairus recommended Zebedee to be the new vendor of olive oil for the temple, which is a huge deal. Malchus turns back to them and says, but don't mention that to any of the 7 Sanhedrin members in the chamber. The parting of ways with the old vendor is something of a sore subject. Then John and Zebedee agree. They understand. They nod, and then they say, we understand. And then we see continuing on, and then Malchus is right here, but we don't really see anything at the bottom of the page. Going on to the next section, we have this right here with, I think is the next section of the script directly after that point. And Malchus says, since you entered the beautiful gate, I assume you have immersed in mikveh and are ritually clean. It goes without saying. Obviously, Malchus is just kind of covering his bases here. He's saying, okay, so I hope that you're clean. I hope that you've taken care of yourself. You're not coming into the temple and giving us this oil while you're unclean. That would be stupid, right? John and Zebedee both say yes. Then Malchus says, the chamber of oils holds a higher standard of ritual purity due to the sacred uses of the oil for the chief priests and for the eventual anointing of the King of the Jews when he finally arrives. He's talking about the Messiah here. Now, this is massive, right? Obviously, this is such foreshadowing, and John sees that as well. As he, aside to Zebedee, he says, glad to hear that, right? Because now he's glad that his oil will be being used for Jesus, is the idea here, right? That Jesus would be anointed as the King of the Jews. So John is not sure what's going to happen here. Of course, he doesn't know about the crucifixion. He doesn't know what's going to happen in terms of all the other stuff, but he's assuming, okay, Jesus is going to be anointed with this oil since he is the Messiah. He is the King of the Jews. Now, we're going to see some additions to that, which is quite interesting as well. Then Malchus says, just a forewarning that the master of oils will require verbal confirmation of purity beyond simple mikveh immersion before entering to have your oil evaluated by the board. Zebedee says, understood. Malchus then turns and he says, Rabbi Zebediah, shalom. Zebediah comes in, shalom, Malchus. Remember, Zebediah is very much against, let me scroll down so you guys can see that ending part there. Zebediah is very much against Jesus, right? He is on the opposition. He is with Shmuel the whole way, basically, and he is fighting against this Jesus guy. So Zebediah is the enemy. He's one of the people who's tried to stone Jesus and the people just last season, but yet John is here in the temple again, and Zebediah sees him actually with Zebedee. This is going to be an interesting section. I'm sure we'll talk about this as the episode airs, but for him to not recognize John is quite interesting here. I wonder if there's something else in the script that maybe John's kind of hiding or whatever else. Remember, Zebedee wasn't there on that day, but John definitely was with the rest of the apostles and stuff like that. So maybe in the scurry of what's happening, he just didn't recognize him as a follower of Jesus. But it would have definitely been a problem if they did recognize him as such. So I wonder what's kind of going on there. Anyway, Malchus then continues and says, this is Zebedee and his son John of Galilee. Once you've obtained your requisite verbal confirmation, I'll wait outside with the cart to make sure it isn't stolen. To John and Zebedee. Even within the temple courts, you'd be surprised what can happen. Now, this, of course, is another kind of callback, I guess, to what can happen in the temple courts, which is obviously Jesus and his group getting stoned and different things like that. So that's another callback there. Of course, that there's stuff that could happen within temple courts anyway. So then Zebedee goes forward and begins to talk with Zebediah. And this is where it gets a little bit hard to read, but I think I've deciphered most of this. As you can see in this section, it's really, really difficult to see any of these words here. I see a little bit of them. I'm pretty sure I've deciphered the whole thing. So we're going to go over it piece by piece, and I've written it out so you can see exactly what it says here. Okay. This is after the point that we've just read, I'm pretty sure. And so here's what it says here. The first section says, let me scroll out a little bit so you guys can see. Actually, let me turn off my camera as well. And, uh-oh. Okay, cool. There we go. So the first section says, Malchus, who's talking here. It says Jesus of Nazareth needs to be tried and held accountable for false prophecy, Sabbath breaking, and a whole litany of other offenses. But the people are ready to crown him king. What's a high priest to do? So we don't know in what context this is being said, but he is talking to John here. We can see that not only by the names above the people that are talking, but also because of the numbers that are there. We see number 3 over here is John. Then we see number 1 is Malchus, number 2 is Zebedee, and number 4 is Zebediah. And so we saw that earlier on in these scripts as well. We can see that same kind of numbering here for the different people. So anyway, we continue on. We see the next section. It's Zebedee exits the court. So it says something to the effect of he exits into the court of women, or he exits the court of oils with Zebediah. Then Zebediah says, that will be all. Zebedee, son of something, but I can't decipher what it says there. I can't see. I don't know if we've ever heard Zebedee's father's name. Zebedee, son of, I'm not sure. So it's not a scriptural thing. I don't think it's in the scriptures. But anyway, it says, that will be all, Zebedee, son of whatever. And then Zebedee says, that's it. And then I think it says Zebediah leaves. Like he doesn't say anything else. He just leaves. Then Zebedee says, wow, not even a welcome to the temple. So he's kind of like upset that Zebediah didn't, give him any like love or at least welcome him. He was very rude to him. So maybe he does know that they're followers of Jesus and he just needs the oil. So he's dealing with them anyway. Not sure. Then we see Malchus says, I'll escort you to back to Caiaphas's office. So that's going to be really cool. We're going to see Zebedee and John in Caiaphas's office, maybe. Or maybe that's where they first met Malchus in the first place. And we can finish the paperwork this way. And I think he says brothers. It's really, really hard to see at the end of that sentence. So he says this way, and I think he says brothers. Then finally we see as Malchus leads the way, but Zebedee looks over at John. I think it says inquisitively. So John tries to ignore it. It says something to that effect. And then John says, what? So Zebedee's looking over at John because they've just had this conversation here about Jesus of Nazareth, right? But Zebedee doesn't know that yet. So John is thinking about this probably. And Zebedee's picking up on that. And then Zebedee's suspicions rise, I think is what it says. And then John says, stop looking at me like that. And then that's the end of this section here. So that is all the script that we got. Really interesting stuff, no? Especially this one where he's talking about Jesus of Nazareth and talking about how Jesus of Nazareth needs to be tried and held accountable for all the things he's done, right? Of course, this is a servant of the high priest, so of course he's going to have the same kind of understanding that Caiaphas has during this stuff. So yeah, quite interesting. I'm surprised they allowed that much of the script to come through for this scene. I think it's a majority of the scene that we just saw for that section. Obviously, it's not the most impactful scene of the whole season, but it is really interesting and a lot of unique kind of things there. And it clarifies that Malchus is this servant of Caiaphas. We had guessed previously that he was the servant of Caiaphas, but now we have confirmation that it is Malchus and that he's here. So was the leak section before or after the fire and the oil storage? So my thinking is that the fire happens or the explosion happens before this. And so they need to replace the oil because either the vendor did something wrong and there's something explosive in the old oil that they don't want to use, or something just randomly happened, and so they end up hiring Zebedee to be the new vendor because of a connection that he has somehow to Caiaphas. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I do wonder what all the pieces are for that. I'm not 100% sure. Quite interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below of all the stuff and the script leaks, everything else kind of going on. And of course, we'll see you for the next behind the scenes of The Chosen Season 5 as we get closer and closer to release, as they're going through editing and post-processing and all that kind of stuff right now. So anyway, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.